Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Today we are joined by Tammuz, who is the founder and CTO of a company called Autonomy AI. So welcome to the podcast. Tammuz, maybe you can start by telling us a bit about yourself and what you guys do at Autonomy AI.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here. Briefly about me, a decade in the AI space. This is my third startup in the area. I kind of involved with it. So first it was machine learning, then deep learning, now LLM and agents. Yeah, various background academically, and also teaching university about AI for a few years now. Autonomy AI. So what we're focused on is basically aiding in the software development workflows, focused first on the front end. Mm-hmm. So we build agents that accelerate software development, utilizing kind of the full feedback loops that we can get from code bases of varying sizes to get agents to give you proper results once they already know your code base, model it properly, know how to find stuff, when to use it, how to test themselves to really give you solid quality output. Not so much a pilot that works with the developer, but one that has all the tools to check itself and give you a final deliverable that effectively can get to a level that's even production grade without a developer involved. That's Autonomy AI in the gist.
Okay, I see. Yeah, and I think you're being quite modest. Your background is very impressive. I see here your LinkedIn is packed with names that I recognize. So with Autonomy AI, who do you find is your perfect customer? Who has the best success with the product?
It's an interesting question. We have a few different CPs that we focus on. Ones that we've seen that have a really great traction is everybody who has front end but are not really front end focused as a company. And examples, let's say healthcare or fintech or anything related to those. Their core offering is not on the front end side. They have some core business logic that serves their clients, but they need to communicate it and give UX experience to their client that obviously has front end. But that means that their hiring is not really focused on killer front end developers, and the resources aren't focused on really setting up a proper design system and implementing the front end. And from what we've seen, it's a pretty big bottleneck for them. That's kind of a pain in the neck. They want to get what they're building on the back end out. They don't want to spend a ton of resources building the front end. They want to kind of minimum needed to get it out there in terms of a user experience and go back to building more logic that serves their core offering. We're really great for those companies because we take that bottleneck and headache away, and we do it in a way that's much more best practice, much higher maintainability than what they normally build. So we've seen that we resonate with those companies really well. Other than those, the other core ICP that we're really resonating with now are startups that built really fast, ended up with a called spaghetti code often. We'll use that term because it just got really convoluted, but they needed to deliver fast, and there's very little reuse, really hard to maintain, not a lot of consistency across screens. And then one day they wake up and they're like, okay, well, the product's out. We need to organize our house and set up a design system and now rewrite a bunch of code. So that's where we're also excellent. Because as soon as we can help them set the design system up, the agent does it automatically as they work, but they can also rewrite and refactor a lot of code. So old pages that aren't using the design system, you just tell it, focus on this page, create it with the design system, and it'll just rewrite it by using your new design system. I don't know if that sounds like a big deal or not, but it's something that snags at a ton of startups. Everybody goes through that phase.
Right. So being technical yourself, is that something that you have struggled with in the past and you saw this as a bleeding neck problem that needed to be solved, or did you see a gap in the market, or tell us about that?
A little bit of both. Great question. One, in the previous startups and teams I've managed, I always felt like it was slow. It feels really fast in the beginning. And then as soon as you reach a certain milestone in terms of the amount of front-end code, suddenly you feel like a serious drop-off in terms of productivity. People have a hard time managing with the component library. Stuff doesn't get reused. There's a bunch of kind of edge cases and how to use it and a bunch of know-how and tribal knowledge that as soon as you start scaling and bring more people, it fades off in a way that's hard to maintain momentum. So the idea was to start helping with software development in multiple facets. But when we did market analysis and the competitive analysis, we saw that front end was very much ignored. So it also led us to focus more on front end than back end. And we're really focused technologically on giving our agents feedback loops so that they can test themselves as they work. And front end just offers a really great environment to do that because you can render, you can compile, you can see what it looks like visually. They can compare it to the initial design. It gave us a really nice playground environment to give our agents.
Got it. Yeah. And so speaking about agents here for a second, obviously right now, it seems like a massive trend in the AI space. Everyone's talking about agentic AI. What are your thoughts on current AI trends, and where do you see AI going over the next couple of years? Just curious.
So I'm a big believer in agents. The whole startup is based on agents. There's a lot of buzzwords and And today it's a little dangerous. The whole vibe coding movement is really extremely dangerous. And you can see a bunch of memes about it where they're saying 2 developers can create the tech debt of 50 developers now. So you're accelerating momentum, but the statistics show that the bug rate is up 40%, code churn is up 40%, and those are exactly the stuff that you would expect to go down as you use more and more AI and develop smarter. So today, I think it's dangerous. What we talked about a little bit of kind of validation and testing and reusing the code base is lacking in most tools. So I don't think it's quite there for all the tools. I know it's something that we put a lot of effort in. So we're really focused on reuse and really focused on validation and making sure that it gives you stuff that is maintainable and doesn't degress and add regressions or churn or whatever negative metrics a lot of them add. But a lot of the tools out there, if they get used irresponsibly, the gain is sometimes not worth it in terms of all the bad stuff that comes along with it.
Right. Got it. Okay. And so then within autonomy AI, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced and overcome over the last, was it almost 2 years?
I want to say that a lot of them have been technological. Like, how do you use the models to the best capability? How do you also keep up with? We have had a few times where we don't do conform agents where you can tell them to go off on a wild chase and hopefully land in the right thing. Ours are much more controlled and with a lot of validation, as I mentioned, in feedback loops. It's been interesting along the way as models progressed. Sometimes a bunch of work that we did, kind of suddenly we saw that we could skip all of that because the model made less mistakes in this way and that way, and you can move further and wait on the validations because you can get further before it. So generally, a challenge that I guess is ongoing, but has been really, overall, really fun. It's been just constantly reimagining yourself in this evolving LLM capable world. Like, LLMs are changing rapidly. And there's always a weird balance. People that started like 4 years ago, you can say that their companies are too old because they're built on legacy technology and they're not really leveraging today's LLMs. And if you do, then you constantly have to delete old stuff and not move forward. So it's an interesting balance. And I think we're doing a good job at it, but it's something we focus a lot on.
Right. And then how are you guys like spreading the message about autonomy AI? Like, how are you acquiring customers? How did they know you exist right now?
So that's more in our CEO's domain. You can talk about it better than I can, but we're doing a little bit of everything from bigger launches, like using Product Hunt and leveraging that. A lot of it, thought leadership. So publishing more and more articles and blogs, explaining how we see various parts in the market. And let's say like MCPs, what's good, what's bad, how to use them properly, where they fall short. So we are following the overall trends and contributing our take on them. And then a lot of more targeted stuff. So we see if companies have front-end hiring positions, and we reach out actively saying, well, it's great that you're looking for front-end. Did you know that if you use this agent, there's a good chance your current front-end team could support the work of quite a few more front-ends.
Right. Is there a particular agent that you feel most people are gravitating towards and they instantly understand and they're like, oh my God, this is so much value, we need to plug this into our business? Or is it mostly each case is different and it depends?
It's been a learning curve, but for now, I think where we landed on is we look at all their Jira tickets. The agent literally reviews them and can label them. So we help them understand the use cases that we can help with without having them go through too much work and understanding everything we can do and going through old tickets. So I think that's been very helpful. And 2, we laid out the possibilities much more in terms of everything that we can do. In the past, it was a little more grandiose, like you can do this and you can do that, and that basically covered everything. And you saw that people had a hard time understanding the full reach of those possibilities. So we did clarify all the different use cases, but generally speaking, we're very much focused on front end. So the agent that we're mostly pushing is what we call the magician agent. That works on the front end side. I hope I answered the question properly.
Yeah. And speaking of magician, one of the questions I really like to ask people on the show is, let's say that we had a magic wand and we could wave it over a big problem right now, and we'll leave like geopolitics and all that kind of aside, let Mr. Beast solve all of that. But with autonomy AI, is there something that you would wave a magic wand and you would solve it like that? What would that be right now?
So there's something that's on our roadmap because we know that it's a big problem and we want to focus on it in the short future. Today, if I could if I had a wand and I could request anything, it would be instant coverage in terms of tests for our code base. It's really important just to maintain yourself over time, but also really important the agentic era because those tests are your agent's way of constantly understanding that they're not breaking anything without that tribal knowledge that human developers acquire. We have a calculated plan on how we want to tackle this. We just haven't gotten there yet because we're focused more on product-facing work on front end, but we want to get there soon. But if I had a magic wand, and I could have our whole code base have that tomorrow, it would allow us to utilize other agents from other companies in a much more safe way.
Right. Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And then so finally, Tammuz, if you could go back to the very beginning of the journey with Autonomy AI, what are some things that you might change now that you have the gift of hindsight?
In retrospect, it's tricky because back then the technology was also where it was that led us to make those decisions. But we were very focused on being developer facing from the very beginning, even though our quality got to the point where you could render and give us feedback without being a developer, because it's front end, right? So you can visually see the rendered results and you can see the Figma and you can tell it what you wanted. Today, we're doing a shift to also let less technical people utilize the agent, meaning product managers, designers. And now with some of our clients, we're seeing an interesting shift where in the past, the front end flow was take a designer, tell them to make Figma, have a product manager write in a ticket, give it to the developer, and hopefully all that still stays, right? The design and the final code are consistent and match. It doesn't happen. Often there's a big gap between what the designer wanted and what was finally implemented because of various limitations. The pixel perfect is typically far off. The designer asked for stuff that wasn't in line with the existing components and code base. So initially we focused on, okay, let's just help the developer speed up their front end work. But with the quality that agents can give, now we're taking a step back to saying, well, no, the product manager can give the output and do the product review before it even gets to the developer. And we can even take that another step back to the designer where they can run the agent. And since it can render itself and give them a live preview within their own product and their own infra, then they can do a design review and give feedback. And suddenly you're not so dependent on the developer bottleneck. So we were initially too focused on that, like a lot of the tools still are. But as the quality improves, the right persona is the less technical. It's not about speeding up. For us, at least, it's not about just speeding up developers. It's about enabling non-technical personas to do some of that work. So if I could go back in time, I would have made that shift and that focus earlier on. But you live and learn.
Right. And like you said, you made the best decisions at the time, given the knowledge and the technology that existed. Cool. If people are listening and maybe they want to check you guys out, they're interested in some of the things that you talked about, where can they go and maybe how can they connect with you?
Sure. So I'm always happy to connect on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me a connection there, send me a DM. Our CEO, Adil Ben Yehuda, is extremely outgoing. Feel free to connect with him there as well. He's much faster at me at everything but communication. I'm usually trying to code. But on a more straightforward approach, go to our site, autonomyai.io. We cover a bunch of the use cases that we can help you with. We can package in what's a startup phase, what's a growing phase, what's an enterprise phase. You can understand the value add in whatever scenario you're at. And there's just an option to book a demo and join us.
Perfect. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing some insights and telling us a bit about Autonomy AI. Thank you very much. And thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for having me.